Just imagine for 1 second if we were to import that from India and pay in Indian rupee. What a game changer it would be for our country. So I think there is huge potential to de-dollarize transactions in both countries. Tariff crisis happening all over the world, including in Mauritius. We also been, faced with 15% tariff. But India remains a very, very important market for our financial services. And as India's economy is growing, as we know, India is projected to be the third largest economy in the years to come.
This is an exclusive conversation with the Minister of Financial Services and Economic Planning of Mauritius, Dr. Jyoti Jeetun. Thank you so much for joining us. Ma'am, let's begin with the fact that you're here for the India-Africa Summit. This is a very important one. India is engaging Africa as a continent. But how important are relations when it comes to financial services, the economic partnership that India and Mauritius today enjoy?
Geeta, it's my pleasure to be with you this morning. And yes, I'm here to attend the India-Africa conclave, but also to have some bilateral meetings with government in India and the private sector, both Indian side and African side. See, our relationship with India, first we have this very deep-rooted cultural relationship. 70% of our population or so are of Indian origin. And so we have very deep-rooted ancestral, cultural, linguistic relationship with India. And we also have very strong and ever building stronger relationship, economic relationship with India. As you know, financial services India has been a very, very important and pillar of our financial services sector. For a very long time, Mauritius was the first FDI driver in India. That has changed since 2016 when the DTA was amended and Singapore and the US have taken over. But India remains a very, very important market for our financial services. And as India's economy is growing, as we know, India is projected to be the third largest economy in the years to come. We would like to consolidate and strengthen that relationship so we can also tap on the potential of this growth, this incredible growth story that is happening in India.
Dr. Jeetun, one is the part where we talk about partnership and growth. The other is about maybe concerns that the two countries could have on transaction abuse, on using financial services to the disadvantage of the countries itself, and certain fraudulent entities taking advantage of the services. Any cooperation on that front?
Geeta, that's a very valid question. Yeah, there have been challenges. As you know, Mauritius also found itself in the grey list, on the EU grey list a few years ago. We are now, we came out of it successfully back in 2021. We are now compliant or largely compliant to all 40 FATF requirements. That's on the AML CFT side. On the any abuse or perception of abuse on the tax side, as you know, the treaty was amended, and there's a protocol that is still being, finalized, some fine-tuning happening, which I hope will be finalized very soon. All this sets the base for a very robust partnership based on, integrity of our systems and our structures. We in Mauritius, we are making sure that our enforcement agencies, our supervisory bodies, our regulatory authorities are effective and efficient in the way they do the supervision work. So to make sure that there is no abuse in the system. And if there are, people are always trying to outsmart you. So we are our agencies are working day and night to make sure that they are also ahead of the curve, so that people don't try to outsmart them. But it's a constant battle that you're always trying to work to make sure that no one can abuse, and if there is abuse, that we catch them and we take sanctions.
There are only a few countries that work with local currencies. Mauritius and India also, in a way, do a certain amount of transactions that are not dependent on dollar. Is that so? Are we looking at increasing the ambit? And how are we looking at maybe the digital payment modes between the two countries that can be of great use for those who are traveling or doing business with each other?
Geeta, for Mauritius, it will be a game changer. The transaction happening in local currencies and being able to do settlements in local currency with India will be a game changer and potentially has huge opportunities. Because see, we're a small country. We import most of our stuff, and most of them paid in dollars. And you know what that means when your economy is entirely dependent on one global currency, the impact that it has on inflation and depreciation, on cost of living crisis in the country when you're having to import in and pay in one currency. So for me and for Mauritius, I think it will be a game changer. It's only starting now, so we will need to work and build and consolidate on that. But I'll just give you one example. Sure. Our first line item in our imports is fuel, which we pay in dollars. Just imagine for 1 second if we were to import that from India and pay in Indian rupee. What a game changer it would be for our country. So I think there is huge potential to de-dollarize transactions in both countries and encourage, through tourism and whatever imports and exports that we are doing between our two countries, to be able to do that in our local currencies.
Dr. Jeetun, you're talking about de-dollarization. It is a very important part of how the two countries are looking at coming together. India has been, with many other countries, working towards a system that will not make it dependent on the dollar, although they're not saying it, but we're seeing a lot of shift in movements. With the kind of tariffs that have been now imposed across the world by America on many countries, Mauritius included, what are the concerns and fears of being dependent on the dollar?
See, the world has become very unpredictable, as we all know. But at the same time, uncertainties and unpredictabilities are things that we face every day in business, in government, be it technology, be it climate change, and now, all this tariff crisis happening all over the world, including in Mauritius. We also been, faced with 15% tariff. And we will have to reinvent ourselves to see, how do we now remain competitive? Can we still trade with that country, or shall we now change and export to? So there will be setback, no doubt, whether it's for India or for Mauritius. There will be major setbacks, but we will have to reinvent ourselves and see what would be, other markets that we can explore. And obviously currency comes into play. The world dollar is very, it's not tomorrow that we will become less dependent on dollar, but clearly a shift is starting to happen.
Is it not so that, many are saying that President Trump himself is pushing smaller countries, developing economies, which includes the BRICS nations also, towards BRICS? That they are going to look at the alternatives, BRICS becoming an alternative, China becoming an important part of the supply chain yet again, and of business and transactions, rather than looking at America. Is US President Donald Trump not pushing developing economies towards BRICS, towards China, and towards India?
there is a tectonic shift happening between west and towards east, from north to south. That's clear. That there is, every country look at their own national interest these days, and I would say that in this movement of tectonic shift towards east and towards south, there's bound to be more cooperation happening between our countries. Like, take the example of us in Mauritius, working with India, working with African countries, and with China as well, which are all our neighboring, and the Middle East. So we are bound to now look more local, more neighboring countries and see how we can do trade with our local neighbors.
Mauritius is very important geostrategically. You do have a trump card when it comes to the United States of America. Diego Garcia is a trump card. Is Mauritius looking at that to ensure that your economic planning, your financial services are not hampered by the United States of America? You are going to take over the island soon.
See, that's a very interesting question. We have good relationship with US, with the UK, with Europe, and eastward with China, India, and Africa. So really, we want to retain and strengthen those relationships, whether in the west or the east, and continue, progressing the prosperity of our people and building growth in our economy.
And understanding the geostrategic importance of Mauritius, do you think somewhere India realizes it? We've seen the kind of engagement at prime ministerial level, but do you think somewhere America is forgetting the importance of Mauritius at this point in time, where everybody is looking at how to have some importance and space in the Indian Ocean?
Listen, I think every country looks at their own national interest these days. It's clear Mauritius is a small island, but with a large ocean that we have to be responsible for. And we are working with all countries around us, but also globally, to be able to have a safe environment and have a progressive trade relationship.
Okay, coming back to the area of your absolute interest and focus, as the Minister of Financial Services and Economic Planning, is there any plan of infrastructure development that the two sides are looking at? Is Mauritius looking at India for any projects in Mauritius, and vice versa?
There are many collaborative and prospective projects that are in the pipeline between India and Mauritius. In financial services, as I said, the protocol amending the DTA is going through some minor, fine-tuning, let's call it that way. But other areas as well. There are a number of other areas where India is assisting Mauritius in capacity building, in infrastructure development, hospital construction. There are quite a few projects that are ongoing and a few in the pipeline. There's an electric bus project, for example, that India has just collaborated with, donated 100 electric buses to the country. We're hoping to also expand in fintech, IT and fintech, ocean, blue economy, renewable energy, health sciences, and healthcare products. So there are a number of areas where there are potential and that we will be working, to further consolidate and strengthen the economic partnership.
Dr. Jyoti Jeetun, thank you so much for joining us here on the network.
Thank you, Geeta. It was my pleasure.